So we're about 6 weeks post checkpoint into consolidation, about to go into investment phase. How does it feel?
I feel really, really great. And, I just can't believe it. I really can't believe what I've achieved. It feels like a dream, actually, to be honest, because if I look at myself, funny thing is that, a couple of weeks ago, a school friend saw me on Facebook and she goes, "Oh my God, you look like you were 20, right?" And she just wanted to have a chat with me and how I achieved it. So yeah, basically, people have been coming up and saying, school friends rather than people that never knew me at school, right? So basically they're saying, you look like my daughter rather than, our age. And their daughters are in something like late 20s, early 30s. So it does feel amazing.
You've turned back the clock.
Yeah.
You've made late 50s turn into late 30s.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was having lunch with my mom last weekend, and her case study just came out a couple of weeks ago, and she goes to me, Vanita, the lady you put up the other week, she's done amazing. Like she's so inspiring to me, and I was like, well, I've got her coming on the podcast, and your journey is incredible. It's really, the best word to put it is a journey. Like, you've really been on a journey that. There's been so many ups and downs, and you've got you've got a story to tell, really, and which is why I really wanted to bring you on here. So I can't wait to get into it.
Thank you. It has been a journey and a half, tell you the truth, because you know what? It's like when a life gives you a curveball, it's when you least expect it. And, I was on the high when I was living and working abroad. I was basically, I didn't think anything could touch me. I was invincible. And basically, it was like, what can go wrong? Nothing, And then all of a sudden, you get this curveball that changed my life, has really brought me down to earth again.
Do you want to go into what the curveball was and what ended up being the trigger to start this journey?
Yeah. I was thinking about this, and the actual trigger was, I was working as architectural designer, and I was working and living in Asia, and basically I was doing, where do I go? It was really trying to get back after my mum passed away, trying to get back into work. And I was interviewing with so many different people, and one opportunity came up, and I passed through all the technical interviews, and the final interview was meeting up with the CEO, and he was a French guy. And the HR said to me, make sure you're well groomed, right? And because French people, it was a luxury chain, and, you had to look $1 million with French people, especially to fit in this role. And what happened with me was that I had put on so much weight whilst taking care of my mom. And basically I had this suit on, which was tight. I had a shirt on, which was tight. And I was wearing heels. And I couldn't walk in them. I just could not walk in these heels. And my knees were hurting, my feet were hurting. And I was walking in Mayfair in this luxury branded hotel to meet this French CEO. And I thought, and I just felt so underconfident about myself. Yeah, I knew I could do the job. And I came out of that interview and I thought, I haven't got it. I wasn't coming across confident because I just didn't physically, I just didn't fit in with the whole environment. And I didn't come across communicated confident. And basically, I came back and I thought, I've lost it. I've lost it. That is what really made me contact you. And I said, I need to get back fit and I want to turn the clock back where I am in my 20s or 30s again, fit, you know, and I can do the job same as mentally. And that's where that was my trigger to get in touch with you, right? And my mom had just passed away then as well. So literally she passed in May and I had this interview in about June type, right? And I contacted you and I said to you, look, I need to get on this. And that's when I told you about my mom, about my menopause and everything. And I was so glad I got on that first intake where you close the doors, you know?
Yeah.
First 100 people or 90 people you were taking on.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, July, July
Yeah,
13th, 2019.
yeah, I was typing it in, trying to get in. Your system crashed. You know, your system crashed. And basically, I thought, what if I don't get in? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Right? Because I'd tried everything else and I just couldn't get on. I couldn't do anything because physically and mentally, I was such in a bad place. Because 6 years ago, my mom broke her ankle and I came here for Christmas and I saw her in the hospital and I just thought, I can't leave her. I can't leave her. She was such a bad place. So I decided I'll come back. I went back to my job and they were restructuring and I thought I'll take the redundancy and come back. And I came back. I had another job to go to in Sri Lanka and I kept postponing that job, pushing it. And then again, I couldn't do it to my mom. And I just she was diagnosed dementia, Parkinson. She had diabetes, high blood pressure, everything you can think of, right? And she was just in a bad place. And every time I took her to the hospital, she used to say she just wanted to die. And, you know, and I just felt like, what can I do for her? What can I do for her? And at the same time, I was going through my menopause, which nobody really tells you about it, really. You know, when you're younger, they tell you at schools about all the other things in life. But when it comes to menopause, you know, nobody knows. You know, there's nothing. And, you know, you get mood swings with menopause. You get eating disorder. You get things like, your bone density is so fragile, right? And, some women go through such bad menopause like I did. And it was like, what used to happen is, depending on what you ate or drank, especially if you drank alcohol or spicy food, it's like somebody would turn on the heater really full blast, and waist above, you've got this, heat flush where you're just sweating for a few seconds. And even if it's cold, you think, oh my God, you want to be in the coldest, and you open fridge doors to cool down, right? And at night time, I used to wake up 3 or 4 times a night just to change clothes, because my clothes used to get drenched. That how much I used to sweat. And I don't sweat generally, even when I do exercises. But during this period, it was like the mood swings, all of this takes a toll on you, because I didn't sleep well, right? I was constantly stressed. I was constantly angry, couldn't control my environment. And I used to think, how do I deal with this? And I put myself, I didn't go to the gym, right? I didn't do any exercise. I used to do maybe about 300 steps a day. And I put my mom's health and well-being first, more than mine, So it was all about her, really, and basically made sure she was okay. And at night time, when basically I couldn't sleep, I would do research, and I would basically look at, how can I make her life comfortable? How can I get social systems and networks to help her, right? And that's what really kind of took a toll on me. And she passed away on 2019, May 2019. And do you know what? I didn't realize during that period, actually, when she died, I was like a robot. And it was like mechanically doing everything. But after everything settled is when it hit me. It really affected me, where I just didn't know how to control myself. I couldn't get out of bed. I had very bad knee problems. My feet were hurting me so badly, right? My lower back was so bad because I was eating junk food most of the time. And it was like cheesecakes. I was binging on cheesecake and wine. That was it. And crisp. And it was like, didn't cook proper meals. And, I'd stayed in bed till late. There was no structure in place. So when I had this interview and I failed, I just had to take a hard look at myself. And my niece, she had told me about Akash Desai, because that was her cousin. And she said, he's done so well and differently. And I just started following you, started looking, and I thought, I have to get on because nothing else is working. So that's what led me to come to RNT. And I tell everyone that, it's the best investment I've made on myself, because it has definitely turned my life around.
Amazing. Yeah. Lost for words, really, what to say. it's a completely different woman to the one I know now, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
completely different. You know, in this period, how many years was it that um, you were looking after your mother?
About six
About
years.
6.
Yeah.
How did you find? You were someone who was a very high achiever in your career for so long. How did you find losing your purpose in a career sense of view in that period of time?
You know what? It was really, really difficult because my career is more hard skills rather than soft skills. And what it is, it's about, you know, in terms of designing, building, and working with your mom, who's got so many different health and problems, makes you really, really look at yourself and think, how do I deal with this? I didn't know how to deal with it, Akash, really, if I'm honest, right? Because I've never ever had to deal with anything like this illness, having to go to, you know, take her to hospitals, talking to doctors, consultants, talking to social services. Whereas with my industry, it's totally different, right? And it's more about, you know, I was really, really high up in my career. So, and it was dealing with different types of people. And I just could not get my head around how to deal with. And I was dealing with different kinds of professionals, and it was different way of working with them. And I didn't know how to do that, if I'm honest, right? Because I come from a very male orientated industry as well, right? And this care industry is more female dominated. And it, you know, so even though there are men in there, but there's a lot of more softer skills. And it's how do you deal with that? And that was, I was struggling, right? And that's why I was trying to do research at night. And for me, I lost total confidence in myself because I was a high achiever in these hard skills, and I knew exactly what I was doing, how to deliver, how to cope with problems, how to deal with challenges, right? But here, how do I navigate? I didn't know how to navigate in this other industry with public sector. It was totally different, right? And that's what made me feel I'm no good. I can't deal with this. And it was fighting internally about myself, about my ability. How do I make people understand this? Because I came from a private sector as well to this public sector. So again, you've got apples and pears. So, you know, you've got so many things going in, and it's like, especially when you love someone so much, right? And you want the best for them, is how do you get around this system, which with menopause and mood swing, I was constantly unable to control my environment. I was angry, frustrated, right? And I would be short-tempered. I would, for no reason, shout at people, not just you know, and one minute I'm on the high, next minute I'm down. And it's like, how do you control this? And I just wasn't myself, you know. And what made it worse was that there was no structure for me to mentally look at things differently.
What did you said you struggled to cope? What did you use to cope with this? Was it just food? And because I know you said you weren't moving at all. What were
No,
you doing to? What was the
well,
outlet here?
yeah, what my outlet was mainly was when I felt down, I would just go and eat.
Mm.
And because I wasn't sleeping well at night, I would maybe have a couple of wine glasses to just fall asleep, right? So do that. And then, so basically, I had a good set of good friends, and I used to talk to my friends a lot. And after a while, you know, friends become tired as well because they can't support you all the time. And every time I had a problem, I used to have anxiety, fear, and there was absolutely no outlet at all for me. And my only means was food, talking to friends, and at night time I'll have a couple of glasses of wine to fall asleep.
Mm. What was some of your, if you just look back, because then we can shift into how you manage your demons now. But what was some of your darkest moments? Do you have a specific dark moment you can refer to, where you felt you were losing control of your mental health?
Yeah, one of my darkest fears and was that basically I found that watching my mom deteriorate really badly, right? And I would take her in the hospital and you could see her face and you see, you know, you could literally tell she wants to die. And she used to say, I wish God would take me, you know, I wish God would take me. And I just didn't know how to help her. I just did not know how to help her. I see that face today, right? And I think, you know, I should have done more. I should have done more than I did, right? And basically, you know, it's her eyes you see, and you think, you know, maybe if I taught her how to eat properly when she was younger, you know, she wouldn't have had diabetes, because she used to have eye injections,
Mm.
right? So every couple of months, she would have eye injections. And every time I used to take her to the hospital for eye injections, she used to say, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Right. And I would say, Mom, you need to go. What if you become blind? You have to go. Right. And it was like I was trying to control her food at, you know, right towards the end of her life, which is not really going to help her, right? Because I wanted her to, I suppose, die enjoying things in life rather than, you know, seeing the pain in her life. So those were my darkest moments when I used to take her to the hospital.
When you started the journey, how did you find the initial bits, and how did it help you at the beginning when you're coming out of such a traumatic time in your life?
The thing was, I'll be honest, you know, when I joined RNT, when I look at it today, everybody is like writing into Facebook community and they're getting prepared and ready, right? I didn't join on the day, right? Because I had my coach send me an email and I didn't respond to him, right? And it was almost 2 weeks I didn't respond. And I had an email from you. I had a couple of emails from my coach. And I wasn't prepared at all to join because I didn't think it was going to help me. I really didn't think it was going to help me, right? And it was like, almost like I had written myself off because my mum was no longer here anymore, right? And, you know, every job I was applying, I wasn't getting, right? So it was like, you know, for me, it was, what can I do? And then, you know, I thought, you know what, I've got to give it a go, right? So when my coach said to me that, look, you've got to you fill in this form. I filled in my form and told them exactly what I did. And I thought, you know, when I was filling the form in, I said, I'm healthy, right? Yeah, I couldn't get out of bed. My knees were hurting. I had lower back problems. I had feet problems, right? I was eating junk food. I was putting on weight, right? I had done blood tests where I had been told I was on borderline on everything. Cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, I was on borderline, right? So for me, it was because I went in for my menopause, really, right? But they said I was on borderline on everything, right? And yeah, I thought I was a healthy person mentally. So when I was filling this form in, I said to my coach, look, I eat healthy breakfast, right? I was having granola, homemade, right? And it was a bowl full, but lots of honey on it, right? And then I would have a sandwich, but it was a cheese and salad with a packet of crisps and a cheesecake every single day, right? Then in the evening, I will have, I don't know, some ready meals from Marks and Spencer's, right? So it could be a pizza, pasta, or something like that. And I look back on all of that and I think, oh my God, you know, I was eating something like nearly 2,500 calories a day or more.
Well, it's not moving. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was no protein in my life.
Mm.
There was absolutely no protein, right? It was carbs, 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 right? So for me, first thing, it was CTP stage.
So Vanita, just before you go into that, you got up at 6 a.m. on that day.
Yeah.
But you still didn't. You signed up, but you didn't feel like you were ready for that. Is that right? And then you took 2 weeks to respond.
Yeah.
What was the trigger to respond then? Was it this blood test, or was the blood test before that?
Blood test was before that.
Okay,
right?
so what then made you think, okay, I need to respond and actually start this?
Basically, it was my coach contacted me a couple of times, and then you contacted me personally and said, is there something wrong? Right. And I just felt that I've made a commitment, and I always like to follow through my commitments. That's one of the values I have, right? So if I promise somebody I'll do something, I will do that. And then I basically followed through.
Okay.
And I thought, I need to do this, right? And I reviewed the rejection of the interview I had with that CEO, plus the blood tests, plus there was no structure in my life, and I was getting more and more depressed, right? And I had to give it a chance to get on this and see. And one of the things was that Sanjita's case study and Suraj's case study, right, really resonated with me. And I thought, I have to do this. If they could turn their life around, so can I. Right. And that is when I was really, really at my lowest point, where it was like all I can feel was I was free falling down in a black hole, and there was no bottom to it. And it was just free falling. And I needed to get out of it. And that's what really, really, I thought, got to do it. Because Sanjita's podcast came out that week when I joined. And I thought, you know what, I need to start. And that's when I started.
You know, when if you speak to people who are feeling in that black hole, as you described it, what's some of the best pieces of advice you can give to people who are in that state of free fall into a black hole that has no bottom pit and has no bottom?
One of the things that really, really helped me was that, and I didn't really appreciate, was going for my steps, right? And I was just listening to people's experiences, right? So I was listening to your podcast, going through all of the podcast and thinking, how do I get around this? And people's experiences highlights things, how they've dealt with. And for me, it was like, okay, you know what? How can I deal with this? And it was like, I would put music on, right? And I'd just do steps if I didn't feel like listening to any podcast. And basically, I would just walk around nature, and there's a local park, right, which I started walking around, and then you mentally start feeling better, you know. And I used to remember when it used to be raining, right, I didn't care. I really didn't care. I would just put the coat on because I was feeling low, right? I would just put the coat on, and then either I would listen to a podcast or I would just basically put music on and just walk, right? And after walking for half an hour, because I started off from about 300 steps to 5,000, right? 2 to 5,000. From then, a few months later, it was 5 to 7. And then automatically I started doing more, right? And it was like I was doing it where I was thinking, you know, I just enjoy this so much, right? And it was like meditation almost, in terms of zoning out. And then, you know, I thought, let me just get a part-time job, right? Just in anything. So I got a job in brand marketing, and that was 3 days a week, right? Never thought I could get it because, you know, all this time I didn't have confidence. So I got this job at brand marketing, and I used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do my steps, and I'll do about 6,000, and then lunch, take my breakfast to work, have breakfast there, come back. At lunchtime, I'll have my lunch at the table and then go out for a walk. And one of the things what I found, right, and I will take that as a takeaway from this experience, is that, you know, I have never taken lunch breaks. It's a British culture. Lunch break, right? You eat at your desk. And what it is that basically you don't get away from your work and start fresh, and you don't get that recharge, right? When I was working in Switzerland, right, and even in India, when I was working there, what they do, other cultures do, is they have an hour break, no matter what. In Switzerland, everything is closed, right? Supermarkets, offices, you have to go out, right? You have to go out and have that 1 hour break. And basically it recharges you, right? And in India, they do the same, where you have to have an hour break, where you go into a canteen and have your lunch, right? You don't eat at your desk. And what I've always done is ate at my desk. And when I started this brand marketing job, what I did is I would have my lunch because it was only half an hour, and then I would go walking, come back, and, you know, you switch off politics in the office, right? You actually basically, you know, instead of reacting to your environment, somebody may have said something to you, you have a think about that while you're walking, right? I would have, had it been a few months before, I would have reacted differently, right? I would have said things that I wouldn't have meant. But after walking it, and I would say, you know what? Not worth it. Not worth it, and just let it go. You know, and you don't get dragged into politics of the office, or, you know, you would give a different response. And that's what I found. And I would take that everywhere I go work now, is to take that break and walk.
Was that your sort of period where you gathered momentum? Like the increase in steps gave you that confidence that you're on the right path. Is that what it was for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then how do things escalate? Because, you know, you've lost 25 odd kilos.
Yeah.
That's no mean feat, right? You know, if you consider what your starting point, I'm just trying to think of the maths, but it's about 30 to 40% of your body weight, right? You've pulled away, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, anyone who can see the pictures will see, like, you look like a completely different person. You wouldn't even recognize it, right? How did you get from like that? That's what you started the momentum, but how did you continue to build on that and
the thing is,
deal with a lot of the old stuff? Because that stuff doesn't go away, right? The demons don't go away. How did you continue to process them, and all those crutches you had for so long, you now no longer had? So was it just the walking, or go into it?
Well, the thing was, I started getting structure in place, right? So what I did is, we're in an era where there is a lot of podcasts, right? And there's so much material out there, which normally, you know, if I was working, I wouldn't have had an access to it, or if I wasn't walking, right? So really, when I started listening to your podcast that you do, right, with all the case studies, with all the other people you bring on, right, really helped me. And then I started looking at different podcasts, different people, right? And people were interviewing different people about life, about mental health, about wellness, about various things. And I thought, this is really good, right? And when I started, basically, the biggest thing I would say, because I used to go to the gym before, right? Maybe not doing it I always did go to the gym, right? And I kind of ate healthy, right? So for me, basically, you know, having more structure in my meals, right, helped me as well. And also time management, right? Because by cooking food for a couple of days, right, gave me more time, freed up my space and time to read more books, to get more information on listening to podcasts and, you know, all sorts of YouTube, Instagram, all sorts of things, listening to people on Facebook, you know, all of that helped me so much in my knowledge terms. And then, you know, having that, but I'd say steps have changed my life, if I'm honest, right? Because what used to happen with the steps was that I used to do local park. And then I started going out a lot more because we had coronavirus lockdown, right? So I was going out to avoid the crowds. I would go out very early and further afield. So I would go to a much bigger park near me, where this park is so beautifully landscaped, right? And it's only 10 minutes down the road from me. And I used to walk it there, and I would go in the morning. And it's like you are in this bubble, right? And there is the outside world, and then there's this space, right? That you no one there, it's just you,
Yeah, you're in
right?
flow.
Yeah. And you're on your own there, and you've got your thoughts, you've got, you know, and nobody can touch you, if you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, I was in this big, somebody had put arms around me, and basically I used to think about my mom, right? And I used to think about my mom, and I'm thinking, I'm with my mom here, and I'm in this safe environment. And I used to just walk and think, and it used to just, you know, reflect on life. Whole of my life I reflected on, from after coming to this country with my parents, my life with them, you know, and then growing up here, then starting my career, you know, living in London, my relationship with different people, going through all of that, reflecting on whole of my life, right? And that's what made me look at who I am today. And that's what, you know, basically I used to go from one park to another. And to be honest, if I wasn't on RNT during lockdown, I don't think I would have survived in the lockdown. I really wouldn't have survived. You know, RNT has given me a structure which really, really helped me in the lockdown, because you see, I'm living on my own, right? So therefore, in the lockdown, everybody was just, you know, within their own household, wherever they were, right? And even if it's family there, right, you couldn't see them because they were in a different household, right? So it was like, how do you survive this, you know? And if I didn't have my walks and food that I was eating in a structured way, right, and training as well, right, because I adapted my training at home, and that really, because I used to do it late afternoon. I'd do my walking in the morning, and you know, I used to do over my steps. So if I had to do 10,000 or 15,000, I'd do 20, right? And I would just walk and walk because I love this bubble wherever I was. And you know, the other thing was that when the lockdown got actually lifted in other places and not in Leicester, right, a friend of mine and we would go to Bradgate Park, and basically we would be there, and it was again, we started foraging, and you know, and it was like and I used to do photography, but I'd shelved that because university, as part of my course, we had to do photography. So you know, I was good at photography in landscape, but never took it up. And I'm now doing more photography, right? And I'm doing more foraging. I was always into food and cooking. So, you know, and my family knew I could cook, but it was like, now I'm making jams and I'm making pestos and I'm making sourdough and all sorts of things. And when I'm giving them away, a very good friend just yesterday said to me, she goes, "Oh, I've just finished your jam. Have you got any more?" You know, so yeah, it's really helped me. RNT has really changed my life.
And when you look at the some of the research around depression actually and mental health, one of the biggest things is actually structure, walking, and just general exercise, but especially structure, because that's something where you feel a sense of control again,
Yeah,
and a level of that you're okay and that things are okay.
yeah,
At what
yeah.
point did that click for you? Is it almost straight away, or did it take a while for you to nail down on that structure?
No, it took me, once I realized what doing the steps 5,000 and 7,000, right? That's when I realized, you know what? This is really good. And no matter what, I always got up because it made me feel good afterwards, right? So if it's making me feel good, why wouldn't I want to do it? Right? So basically, it was getting my head round. Once I got my head round it, right, and getting up, and the benefit I was starting to see in my body frame, right, my confidence coming back, right, that's when I thought, this is a no-brainer, really, you know. And you know, I used to get up early in the morning for work, right? So why can't I do it now? And, so basically it was, I think in October or November last year, I just gave up drinking totally. I didn't have even a glass of wine, right? And I'm a bit of a connoisseur on wine. And basically, when my family, my nephew and my niece found out I wasn't drinking, and they said, we don't believe you because you love your wine, right? And I guess I don't drink. And the funny thing is, I've got really good quality wine in my store cupboard, and I haven't touched them. I haven't touched them, right? And it hasn't made me feel like, oh, let me open one, even though I know I can go to it now. But just don't feel like it, because I think the kick I used to get from wine is I'm getting from steps.
You found a new crutch, a better one, a healthy, positive one.
Basically, now it's like, I don't need wine to feel good,
Yeah.
I'll just go for a walk.
Yeah. I always talk about training being my anchor in the day. And it's for exactly the same reason. It's like, it just keeps me sane, and it gives me that feeling that nothing else can give.
Yeah.
And for me, it's better than anything, like alcohol, food, etc. The feeling you get when you're in the flow of training is, you can't replace it. It's immeasurable, like you say.
Yeah, because when I'm walking, right, and when I haven't done walking now, right, I find I don't feel right. I need to go, right? No matter what, I have to go. And if one day I missed it, I just feel like, okay, you know what? I have to go first thing tomorrow morning. So I'll make sure I'll go the next day. And it's really funny because one of my brother-in-laws, he does a lot of walking, and he was doing more and more. And he said to me, could he join me one day, right? And he used to do 10,000 and I was doing more than 10,000. So he said, you know what? I can't keep up with you. Right? But the other thing is, you know what, Akash? I don't like being with anyone when I'm doing this either, right? I want to be by myself, right? Because I want to, even if I'm not listening to music or podcast, right? I just want to be myself, quiet, right? And there's Watermead Park near me. Again, it's only about 15 minutes drive, 15 minutes away from me. And it's like, there's a number of lakes there, and and I meet so many dog walkers, and they say, how many rounds have you done? And it's like, seriously, but most of the time, right, I'm just in my own zone.
Yeah. So Vanita, what's been some of the challenges you faced on this journey that you've that you've had to work around and navigate through?
I think social stigma is one of the biggest challenges, right? Today, when you look at it, current thinking is that, and belief system is surrounding age is that you tend to be like, your memory span is not long. Once you get over 50, your health and medical is not going to be, elements of it are not going to be good because you are going to be overweight, or your just general health, right? And your mental ability And I always refused to take that on board because I've got a lot to give, right, mentally. And not just in work, but every possible way, right? Because mentally, deep down, I don't feel old. And about 6 years ago, and while during that period when I was taking care of my mom, because I let myself go, people were actually, you know, they have an opinion about you in the way they look, and they make assumptions about you. And I needed to get around that and change that. And that's what this whole journey has been for me. And I think the whole age process needs a total rebrand. And that's what I think, that's my personal journey because of what I've experienced. I want the age to be totally rebranded. You know, just because you're over 50, you're not past it.
Did you face it both ways? So did you face it when you did let go of yourself, and then when you've regained control and got into the shape of your life that most 30-year-olds can't get into? Did you face it that way as well?
Yeah, because you see, one of the things is that I think a lot of people today, and I think we had a conversation about this, is that when people are overweight, and I was overweight, right? And I had all these problems, health problems, but nobody ever said to me, oh, Vanita, you need to lose weight, right? And when I lost it, people were saying, God, you've become too thin, don't lose any more weight. And I was getting friends sending me text messages all the time. And whenever they saw me, you're unhealthy, you are really, really losing a lot of weight. You're losing. Family members that saw me, they were saying, you know what, is something wrong with you, right? Have you seen the doctor, right? What has happened to you? You've lost so much weight, right? Have you not been eating? And the straight assumption goes back to because of losing my mother, right? And I'm missing her. And I might be really in a depression, or my health is not good and I'm not eating properly. So everything was surrounding that. And I said, no, that's not the case at all, right? I have 4 healthy meals. I'm really full. The fittest I've ever been, right? And I feel it, you know, I'm really confident, right? And now I just think I can do anything, really.
How do you want to rebrand the aging process? I really like what you said there.
I think that, you know, I come from the baby boomers, right? And so basically, you know, if you look at that group, they are unretiring, right? So basically, if you look at them, people who've taken care of themselves, right? They're fit, they look good, right? They've got disposable income, everything. But basically, they don't want to be categorized as old, right? In the way they look. And what I'd like to do is look, because people judge you the way you look, right? And people have said to me that, you know, I don't look my age at all. I look a lot younger. And I think that, you know, having that with mental ability, right? People, I think that, you know, your 50s and 60s is going to be younger now, right? And you're setting standards about the way of life, health, wellness, right? Because last thing I want to do is I suppose being my mom, having looked at my mom, right, with all her health problems, I want to be able to jump out of bed in the morning, right, when I'm 70, 80, run up and down the stairs. I'm quite adventure and outdoor person. And what I'd like to do is, I used to sail. I used to be gliding as a glider pilot. I want to do all of those sports still, you know, because as you get older, you know, you've got more time. So you should be able to do that. And age shouldn't prevent you that. And I think, you know, around your 50s and 60s, you should be able to, if you keep fit, right, and eat right food, keep mentally healthy, you should be able to do all of this, right? And I found that, you know, when you don't do anything is when you get depressed and you get all the illnesses, you become unhealthy. Yeah. So to answer your question, to rebrand, I think that, you know, I want to be healthy and fit to be able to do all the things I want to do and travel.
So what does the next decade hold for you? Like, what does the future hold for Vanita 2.0? What do you want to use this new body, mind of yours to accomplish?
You know, I've always wanted to climb the Everest base camp. I'll go up to the base camp. So I'm saying this on a podcast. So
accountability.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to do it now. Yeah, in 2 years' time, I'd like to do that.
Brilliant. We'll have to make it happen.
Yeah.
One of the things that people find really hard after losing a lot of body weight or going through a journey like this to the extent you have is stepping into a new skin of and a new identity, a new mindset, a behavior, and making it the new norm. How have you managed to embrace your new identity in the past couple of months, and how are you finding that sort of transition period where you spent years relying on certain things, crutches, and when triggers come at you from the old days, you're forced to act in a different way, be a different person, identify as a different person. How have you managed that transition in the early days? Because that's probably the hardest time, but you've already had a lot of success with that, reinforcing that new identity.
One of the things is that when I was walking, I became self-aware, right? I started to look at, because I started to look at whole of my life. So when I was younger, right, in my 30s and 40s, I used to basically love to enjoy life. I loved challenges. I wanted to achieve high, right? So my work defined me, if I'm honest, right? And how other people saw me, right? So basically, right up till I came back to look after my mom, I always saw work as the most important aspect of my life, and also how others viewed me through that. And going for my walks, one thing I found was that basically I didn't have any work now, right? So that couldn't really define me, right? So I started reflecting on my values. I started, in terms of what I was trying to achieve, and started asking really important and hard questions about what I've been achieving. Was it a thrill, or was it something that fulfilled me, right? And I always thought, well, I got bigger jobs. I got, the best companies I worked for, right? Throughout my career, I worked for the only top 100 FT companies, right? I achieved the most senior position. Did it fulfill me? Yes, it did at the time in terms of the living lifestyle, right? But did it really fulfill me, right? What did I achieve in that sense personally? And I didn't feel I had achieved anything in fulfillment, right? So what I found was going for my walks, because I started asking those questions, I found that, what was helping me was look at what will fulfill me and then work towards that. And my long-term goals are, I suppose, it's how can there's so many vulnerable people today, right? Especially the aging population, right? And it's how to help them. How can I help those people?
So the way you've rewired your identity is almost latching onto a bigger purpose than yourself.
Yeah.
Because now it's too important for you to be in shape. It's too important you take care of your health because it's
Yeah.
become non-negotiable for your life's mission, essentially.
Yeah. Because I just feel that, it's not about money. It's not about, what people think about me. It's not about, I have to show people my abilities or what my capabilities are anymore, right? Is, in a way, I'm also leaving some sort of legacies because I've designed and built loads of buildings all over the world, right? So all of those are my legacies, right? In terms of solid structures. But in terms of real making a difference in life, right? That's what I would like to do eventually, and it's to help people, right? And it's like, how do I, There are so many vulnerable elderly people who haven't got a voice at all, right? And it's like they don't know how to go about voicing themselves and, you know, to the right people. And I want to help that kind of people anywhere in the world, really.
Amazing. Look forward to seeing how you unravel this mission of yours.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, but I hope to.
Yeah, I mean, you're not setting out something small there. This is life. This is your life's work potentially.
Yeah, it's huge. It's
amazing.
Huge.
Yeah, you know, thinking about what you just said there around, you know, you had all these positions in your past, and at the time it was fulfilling you. If you had to give yourself some advice, you know, at the age of 30, what would you tell yourself?
I personally think is, you know, if I can go back in time, right, is how can I be at that time, and, you know, how can I be meaningful and, you know, not be fear of not being good enough, and believe in myself.
You've done something different in your career, do you think? Or
Sorry?
would you have done anything different in your career?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I definitely love what I do.
So it's more your approach that you say, the approach to the career?
Yeah. So basically, you know, I love designing and building hotels, right? You know, being in architecture, I wish I was doing a lot more for the environment.
Okay, understood.
Right? And, you know, more sustainable, and be, you know, tell the organizations and be more influencing in that area, right? Because what we do today is going to impact people of tomorrow, right? So if I look at you, right, you're going to get impacted by what I did 20 odd years ago, right? So if I could go back in time, I wish I could change that, really.
So almost have more meaning behind your work, behind the work you did.
Yeah. So instead of chasing that, you know, bigger position, bigger money, you know, or how can I get there, or things like that, really, you know, materialistic things, you know, how can I get that car, or how can I get that big house, or I want to basically look at it in a different way, not chase those materialistic things, but, you know,
Chase a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And in your whole career, you said that you've been, you know, male-dominated environments for a long, you know, for many years. You've obviously been through a lot in your life, and you said you reflected on your life throughout, especially in the sort of grind phase you were in. How did you talk about mental resilience and how you've built this armor to just keep on going throughout?
It started with, in terms of, I suppose,
especially as a woman, like I want to hear from that perspective.
Yeah. So basically, I was brought up very traditionally, right? My parents were very traditional, and, you know, I've got 2 brothers, I've got 3 sisters, big family, and my parents always put emphasis on my brothers in terms of education parents wanted me to be educated and independent, but they wanted me to stay in Leicester, right? And I wanted to explore the world, and I wanted to go away. So I always had to fight this traditional value system. And my parents were doing that because of the society that they lived in. And it was like women didn't study, they had to get married at a certain age, right? And they didn't have careers. So I wanted to defy all of that, because in my mind, I wanted to travel. Travel was the key thing for me, because even when I was young, I always used to, you know, when I was, I think about 7, I took a bus into town, and this is going back in the 80s, early 80s, you know, going into town on my own without telling my parents, you know, to get a book on Christopher Columbus, because we were doing that at history, you know, because I wanted to know so much about him, right? It was that I wanted to travel, I wanted a career, right? And basically, you know, my parents, I wanted to do architecture. So I can remember the times when I was doing my part 2 and I was at home, and I would do these drawings and projects. And my dad was a developer and construction. So he would see these drawings and he says, you know what? Do you understand all of this? Right? Because he didn't think I could do it, design a building. So when he started looking at it and he saw this wall, basic wall I was drawing up, so he said, but this wall won't stand up. So I says, no, I've got a pier in the middle, right? So it'll be structurally sound. And that's when he taught me seriously, right? So from that, I had to fight my dad, right, in letting me do architecture. And then I actually was making models, and he used to take me to college, and he saw what I was able to do. Then from that, I went into work environment. And again, in the work environment, it was, you know, because you're a woman, not only was I a woman, but I was colored as well, right? So that made it difficult in a work environment. And I used to go into meetings, and I'll never forget one meeting I had in London, and that was in Gap. I was working for Gap. And what happened was that my boss was made redundant, and they gave me his job, and this was literally within a couple of months, right? And I wasn't ready for it. And I was in a big boardroom with about 20 people, with suppliers, consultants, and everyone. And there were these 2 guys, they were just kind of chatting when I was talking, right? And they were laughing. And I thought, excuse me, right? If you've got a joke to share, right, we would all like to hear it. Because they were just undermining me in this meeting, right? I don't know whether it was because I was a woman and a colored one at that, right? But I just wondered if they would have done that if it was a male person. I doubt it, right? So when I spoke up like that, they basically, the whole team, the people that were in the room, they thought, well, I wasn't going to take any crap. And that's what really brought confidence in me,
Good for
right?
you.
And then basically after that, it's always been, you know, I've met bigger challenges, right? And the worst ones have been in Asia, because Asian men, especially if they're older than you, they are, you know, women, especially in construction industry, is like, well, what do you know? You know, there was a hotel I did in Himalayas, which the owner had, and first time I went for a meeting, the owner and his team just did not want to share information with my team. And basically, he just refused to. And then he said, we'll do our own thing. And you know what? Went to a meeting. Again, there were 20 odd people. And he had heard things about me, and I had heard things where he wasn't going to change anything on the project. So when I went in this meeting, I had negotiables and non-negotiables, right? And I showed him on one aspect of the design, and I said, this is not going to work for us. And it was non-negotiable. And he said, well, you can't do it. And I gave him a solution. Do you know what? He was older than my dad. And that guy, he respected me so much because he asked his team if that could be done. And it was basically a bathroom design, right? And I drew it and gave it to him, and he asked his team if it can be achieved. And they said, yes, the way she's done it. And he was so embarrassed because everything in Asia is about face. And he was so embarrassed. You know what? Today he comes for advice to me.
Oh, wow.
Because of this, right?
Yeah.
And these are project 500 million plus USD.
Yeah.
Right? He'll say, do you think it's worth investing?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if you are confident in what you do and you believe in yourself, right? That's when I don't think anybody can take it away from you. But a lot of people, and I did the last 6 years before, where I dropped my mental state, right? We live in fear. And if we can get round that, that would help. And this is the reason why I feel that RNT has given me a toolbox, right? Whereby, you know, if I've got a problem or an issue, now I go for a walk to mentally work it out, right? And then deal with it, right? You know, you don't have to deal with it straight away. You can think about it and then go back. And the other thing is that, you know, it's things like sleep. If you don't have sleep, again, that's going to have an impact on the way your mental ability is and how you think and react, right? Then also about if you don't have food properly, right? Again, that all of these things, right, has given me a toolbox, right? Because if you don't eat properly, right, I know that I tend to be grouchy, right? and I go for snacks, right, which are usually sugary, right, and that ain't gonna give me a good way to think. So RNT has definitely given me a toolbox, and I was good at my game, but now I'll be even better.
Physical is the vehicle.
Definitely. Look,
Vanita, you have an opportunity now to speak to some fellow over 50s. What's some parting words you'd like to give them to inspire them on their own journey of self-care and reclaiming their, well, like you said, rebranding their own aging process? What would you like to tell them?
I definitely think that, especially the women, right? Because after menopause, you can't control your mood swings, your body in the way you eat, all of that, right? And people just accept it as part of life, right? And I think, and you become, right? Because people say, oh, you're 50, if previous generation has accepted it, I can accept it, right? But I think my generation shouldn't, right? And, I want to age gracefully, right? And if you look at people like George Clooney and Tom Cruise and, Meg Ryan and all of that, right? They are really like doing things right, right? So why can't we?
Yeah.
And I want to be like them. and anybody can be like that. If I can do it, seriously, if I can do it, right, anyone can do it.
Totally. Everyone has the right to transform.
Yeah, everybody has. And it's state of mind. Definitely state of mind. If you can get around your state of your mind, you can do anything. Absolutely.
Totally agree with you. Amazing. So I look forward to seeing many, many more. Take inspiration from you and continue the domino effect around the world.
Definitely. Yeah. A number of, hopefully, people's friends, very close friends, have said that they want to start the journey, right? And I think that, I've reversed the whole process. I've got no problems. I've got no knee problems, no back problems, no feet problems. I jump out of bed. Right? I can do, 20,000 steps in one go, if not more, right? So for me, and physically, I look at myself and I do think that people have told me I look when I was 20s and 30s, right? But I feel like I was in my 30s now.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing your story, Vanita.
Thank you. And thank you very much for, especially in this coronavirus, supporting me, because I wouldn't have really survived, if I'm honest.
Absolute pleasure. Very welcome.
Thank you.